Welcome to today's session. And what we are going to do today is we're going to talk about a subject related to the mind. So, should we talk about the subject? Or I think let's start with the sitting practice. And then we talk about three states of the mind. Actually, there's something in particular I want to talk about, which is more than just the three states of the mind, of how even good habits can become a form of bondage, but I have to go step by step to reach to that point. So let's start with the sitting practice, and then we will discuss the topic for today. So sit comfortably wherever you are. Nice long deep breath in and exhale. And just come into the present moment, which essentially means disentangle your attention from the thoughts and the stories created by the mind and come into presence. If that's difficult to do, then watch the thoughts, observe the thoughts. If there are no thoughts, then just observe what's happening right now. The movement of the breath, the sensations in the body. Just be with what is. Do not fight what is. Do not resist what is. And do not try to change what is. Just be with what is. When we are in a state of non-doing, simply being, simply witnessing, simply watching, we begin to realize everything is happening by itself. The thoughts are happening by themselves. The breathing is happening by itself. The sensations in the body happening by themselves. And the witnessing of all of this also happening by itself. When there is ease, when there is relaxation, when there is non-doing, the realization dawns that everything happens and is happening by itself. There is no doer, there is no thinker, there is no perceiver. Life is happening by itself. A belief that we are the doer, thinker, perceiver only comes when we identify with thoughts, when our attention is consumed by thought. When there's this identification with thought, when there is silence, inner silence of the mind, then there is the experience of oneness, the feeling that everything is one and unfolding on its own. Life is an unfoldment different experiences are happening. There's no one who's creating these experiences. These experiences are happening by themselves. So just relax, just be. There's nothing to do right now, nothing to become, nothing to achieve, nowhere to go. Just be. And to become comfortable with the silence and stillness. And even if there's lack of silence, there are unconscious thoughts, then learn to become comfortable with that too. Simply be comfortable with what is. Surrender, let go. Imagine for a moment whatever is happening right now is absolutely perfect. There's nothing missing, there's nothing lacking, there's nothing that needs to be changed because this moment created by the universe is absolutely perfect. whatever the mind is also thinking, whatever thoughts may be occurring in the mind, that things are not as they should be, that is also part of the perfection. The unconscious thoughts, the stories, the identification with the thoughts, and the character created by thoughts is also part of that perfection. So if everything is perfect, then nothing needs to be done. Simply be. The beingness is the expression of the universe. Beingness is an expression of life, as is. Remember, we can connect to this perfection any point in our life by simply remembering that everything is perfect. But for that, we need to disidentify from thoughts and the character of the thoughts and come into a state of being. Take a pause, practice awareness. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take another deep breath in and exhale. Slowly and gently, at your own time, at your own pace, whenever you feel like it. You can rub your palms and your eyes. Okay. So, welcome back. I'm recording this just after Diwali and just after having a birthday celebration. So, happy Diwali to all of you. I have no idea when I'm going to post this, nevertheless. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about today is I actually have three titles for today's talk, and I don't know where the direction of this talk is going to go. The first title is the three gunas. For those of you who are conversant with yoga will know there is tamasic guna, the tamasic quality of life, which is dullness, lethargy, mm, and all that goes with it. Then there's rajasicness, which is active action. And then there is sattva, which is to do with balance and calmness and peace and all of that. So that's one title, which is called the three gunas, which I feel like could be a little cliche because everyone, but I will have to talk about those gunas. But it's everyone seems to know these gunas now. And there's a whole chapter in the Bhagavad Gita which is devoted to the three gunas. And the other is then I can also talk about the three states of the mind, which are also associated with the three gunas. And the other part which I find interesting, which actually I want to talk about, is how even good habits can become a sort of a bondage. Well, like we all say that um, curtail bad habits or uh, regulate bad habits and transform the energy of bad habits into good habits, cultivate good habits, whatever those good habits could be, healthy eating, sleeping, exercising, and all of that. But a point also comes when even good habits become uh, a sort of an attachment, a sort of bondage for the mind. Because ultimately, what we are really seeking is freedom from the mind, freedom from all attachments of the mind. Whatever things, our mind is a sticky mind. Wherever it goes, it sticks. If it finds something nice, whether it is um, the niceness of some sensory pleasure, like it likes a particular dish, you go to a restaurant, you like that, and then you want to have it again and again. So that's one stickiness. Other stickiness is emotional stickiness. If someone says something nice about you, then you want to be closer to that person and listen to those nice things. So we generally gravitate towards wherever we find some kind of a pleasure, and then the mind tends to get stuck to that. Similarly, I think a point comes when we get stuck with good habits. So, but anyway, before I reach to that point, I think there's a journey that um, one needs to understand in terms of our mind, the three states of the mind, and how we move from darkness, which is, you can say, associated with the color of black, tamas, to redness, which is associated with the color of passion, and towards white, towards light, and then getting stuck with the white and the light. And so that's what this conversation, this session is about. So, so let's start with the first guna, um, and which is to do with tamas. The first state of mind is to do with dullness and lethargy. So, quite often as children, we are asked to, discipline ourselves to be able to um, get up early in the morning, do some exercise, and because the general tendency of the body is to experience ease and comfort. Because, like, let's say you're lying in bed, why would you want to get up? Because it feels so nice and comfortable and warm. And I think, especially in a place like Dharamkot, where it's really cold, especially this time of the year, uh, all the more reason to, continue being in bed. Also, I remember I grew up in a school in Missouri, in a boarding school, and that used to be, at some points of the time in the year, quite cold, and you just want to snuggle up in bed. And the water is also cold when you put your hand in water in the morning, so you don't feel like really getting up out of bed. And that's the energy of just warmth and comfort. And then if you're too much in the warmth and the comfort, then that warmth and comfort leads to dullness and lethargy. So And that's not just to do with sleeping. It's also to do with eating. Sometimes you like something nice and pleasurable, and then you want to overeat because it feels so nice and good. Or you want to have processed food or junk food and comfort food, as they say. And then when you have that, then you start feeling sedated. You're feeling like dull, lethargic. So that's the other aspect. So essentially everything um, uh, has this quality of these three gunas, which is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And so, one, it could be associated with your sleeping habits, it could be associated with your food habits, it could be even associated with the kind of company you keep. You can hang around with people who talk all kinds of rubbish and all of that. So, that would be a tamasic company. Or it could be even related to the books you read, the movies you watch. If you watch very violent movies, then that would be considered as tamasic. And uh, so anything that sort of creates a sense of dullness and lethargy in the mind, then that's called tamasic. And that's one state of the mind, which is the dull state of the mind, the lethargic state of the mind. And why I'm talking about these states of the mind is because if our eventual goal is awareness, if our eventual goal is presence, because the final, if I may say, practice in meditation is in spirituality is meditation. Now, meditation is simply uh, the practice of presence, the practice of awareness, the practice of stillness, the practice of witnessing, the practice of watching, the practice of mindfulness. I'm using different words, the practice of being conscious. So, in order to practice that awareness, if you have a very dull, lethargic mind, you cannot practice awareness. Because as soon as you close your eyes, and this quite happens with a lot of people, they just do doze off. So, uh, I mean, partly I think when I do a meditation, often people say I have a very soothing voice. So maybe part of it is my voice, which is very nice and soothing to hear. But part of it is also perhaps due to tamasic lifestyle. Maybe you have, maybe you've not had enough sleep, maybe you have overeaten, or you have not done enough exercise. So then the mind is in a dull state, in a lethargic state, and then you can't practice awareness. So I think, I think the purpose of this talk is what aids awareness. I think and the three states of mind, how they are in relation to awareness. So when there is tamas, when there's dullness, there's lethargy, then it's very difficult to be present, be aware. So that's the first state of mind, which is at the lowest level, so to speak. Now, in order to move from dullness, the way to do it is through action. Now, if someone is in a state of dullness, in a state of lethargy, and you tell him, okay, now you sit and practice meditation, that's not going to happen. So perhaps first you need to tell that person, like, okay, go for a run. Oh, go do some exercise. Oh, get up and mm, do some physical activity. So that gets the energy going. So you're tapping into the physical energy. So, so in order to go to a balanced state of mind, one has to go through rajas. So tamas, which is dullness, lethargy, has to go towards rajas, which is action. Some kind of physical action is needed to get the energy flowing, to get the, whether it's the body moving, maybe play some sport, get some. You can't just from dullness directly do it's like a double promotion is not possible. Especially like if people are in a state of depression or feeling low, then the advice given is not that you sit and meditate. The advice is given, you go for a walk, you go for a run, you try to get some sunlight, get some energy moving, get some flow happening, prana moving. So that's where rajas or action is needed. Now, all these gunas or all these states of mind have their usefulness and also have their counterproductiveness. Like, for example, if there is tamas, then it's good because especially at night you need a sense of a dull lethargic mind, so you can then go to sleep. Because if at night, if your mind is hyperactive, then it's difficult for you to go to sleep, which is why you need to maybe dim the light at night. Maybe you need to have a warm glass of milk, you need to have a nice warm bath, or whatever helps you to go to sleep, because you're trying to reduce, or what do you say, uh, dim down the system, lower the frequency of your system, of your mind, so that sleep can happen. So it has its usefulness, but if during the day you are going to be dull and lethargic, then that's counterproductive. Similarly, even rajas, action is needed. You need to do something during the day, something that moves you. So some degree of inspiration, passion, motivation is good because it moves you into action. But then too much of it becomes counterproductive. And example of too much of it is hyperaction. I think you know someone was gifting me a book uh, for my birthday, but she couldn't either find the book. But I just found the title of that book very interesting. It was called Dopamine Nation, which means we are so running on dopamine, which means anything that is giving us a high. We are always constantly running after things, sensory pleasures, um, entertainment, some kind of achievement orientation, to getting some work done. We are constantly hyperactive. And in fact, our mind is also hyperactive all the time. And one of the biggest, I think, what do I say, tragedies, or I don't know what's the word, I'm not getting. But one of the biggest epidemic that humans are facing in today's time is that we lack attention. We don't seem to be able to keep our attention at one place at any point of time, which is why, they say even in social media, make short videos, 1 minute video. Mm. People don't have an attention span to listen to more than 1 minute. And here I'm making 1 hour videos. Okay. So I guess only if you have the attention span will you have the order, the patience, you will go through this whole video. So that's the rajasic energy, the hyperactiveness. And then that hyperactiveness also, there are certain things that can make things hyperactive, like corporate culture is very hyperactive, at least the kind of corporations I've been in. There's a lot of rajasic energy. Also, the kind of food you eat, especially like if it's very rich, very oily, very spicy, it creates a sense of mm, uh, um, hyperness in the system. So I think that's the other aspect, which is the other state of mind, which is rajasic. So from dullness, yes, you needed some action, you got into action, so the dullness is gone. But too much of action also creates hyperactiveness. All these, this wanting success orientation, achievement orientation, all this is a sign of rajas. Constantly believing that I need to do something to fulfill myself, I need to do something, constantly in a mode of doing means getting some new experience, or achieving something, or creating something, or that's a sign of a rajasic energy. In fact, you could probably even in your own life experience maybe some people who are like really hyperactive. Sometimes they're so hyperactive that their hands are moving all the time, the legs are moving all the time, they're talking very, very fast, and that's a sign of a rajasic state of mind. Mm. So, and it's not that there's only one state, there is an element of like these three gunas or these three energies are intertwined like a threads of a rope. But often, given the phase or personality of a person at any given point of time, one energy may be very predominant. Maybe generally a tamasic energy may be very predominant in the person. Maybe generally a rajasic energy may be very predominant in the person, or maybe a sattvic energy. So all these energies are there, but at any given point of time in our life, sometimes, like if you're depressed, then most of the time, then you're feeling tamasic energy, dullness, lethargy. If you're constantly in the state of hyperactiveness, like I met somebody here who owns a hostel and a cafe over here. And he said, I sometimes wish I didn't have so many hours to sleep. I could do something, like my mind is constantly running and thinking of ideas to do this. I should do that. If I didn't sleep so much, then I could execute all those ideas. So that's a very good sign of rajas, which is hyperactiveness. So that's the other state of mind, which is action, passion, achievement orientation, power, aggression. All this is qualities of the Rajasic state of mind. Now, coming to the third state of mind, which is supposed to be uh, cultivated, supposed to be encouraged, supposed to be, that's what evolution, or if you practice yoga, or any kind of the spiritual path, then they try to move your energy to a sattvic state of mind, which is a state of mind which is calm, which is balanced, which is equanimous. Maybe if you've seen pictures of the Buddha, I think best example I can think of is Thich Nhat Hanh, very very sattvic. Eckhart Tolle. I'm just giving examples of spiritual teachers, but I'm sure there are a lot of people who are most of the time calm, easy, balanced. So um, so that's what's really encouraged, that all your spiritual practices are geared towards making your mind sattvic, calm, balanced. Whether it is you're doing mantra chanting, whether you're doing yoga asanas, whether you're doing pranayam, regulating your breath. The idea is to sort of bring balance and harmony into your mind. So, and then of course, a healthy lifestyle contributes greatly to a sattvic state of mind. Like if you uh, get adequate sleep, if you wake up early in the morning, even the time of the days, like they say, the sattvic time of the day is early morning, when it's calm, when it's peaceful, when you know that's the best, and that's why they say that's the best time to do some spiritual practices, because the sattvicness is the most during the early morning time. Nighttime, evening times, things begin to wind down. There's tamas beginning to happen. Daytime, when the sun is really at midday noon, that's when rajas. So then action is needed. So even the day, the phases in the day have these three qualities. So sattva is gets enhanced when we have like a healthy lifestyle. You have uh, fresh food, not very oily, not very rich in masalas and all of that. Fruits, eat light. It's not only about sattvic food, but also the amount of quantity to eat. If you overeat even sattvic food, then that's like, it makes you sedentary. So getting good sleep and doing some exercise. So all these practices help to cultivate a mind which is balanced, which is peaceful. And then when the mind is at a state of, then it's easier than if I tell you, okay, sit quietly, just observe what's happening, observe the sensations, observe the breath, observe the mind. Then it's easy to get into a state of the witness as the observer. But if the mind is dull, then it's not easy to get into, because you'll start sleeping. If the mind is hyperactive, then it's not easy to practice awareness, because too many thoughts and too many identification with those thoughts. So sattvic mind, which one can cultivate through all these holistic practices. I think a simple way I would say is healthy habits of healthy diet and good sleeping. Um, what else is there? doing some asana practice, and all these, sort of having a little bit of a structure and a routine to your life, about healthy routines and habits. I think that's what I'm trying to say. That enables the practice of awareness, and reading maybe the right books, watching some of my YouTube videos, reading my blogs will definitely help you to cultivate some sattva in your life. So these are some of the things. So these are the three states of mind: tamas, dullness, lethargy, and the various things which create dullness, lethargy. And second is rajas, which is hyperactiveness, which is good also in the sense it gets action done, but too much of it then makes it hyperactive. So that's rajas for you. And passion, aggression, that's all those are associated, achievement orientation, all that is associated with the rajasic energy. The third is sattva, which is to do with calmness, balance, duty orientation, which is not so focused on achievement orientation, but okay, what do I need to do in the moment? What do I need to fulfill? It's balance, peace. So that's sattvic energy, and the colors are like maybe dark colors are tamasic, the passionate, bright orange, red colors are rajasic, and white is a sign of sattva. So the intent is to cultivate sattva, have a sattvic lifestyle, and so that it's easier to practice awareness, being, witnessing, watching. Now what I'm going to say. So if you are a beginner or like a fair, like a starter in your journey towards spirituality, perhaps, then you need to get some discipline in your life. Mm, Maybe you need to get up early in the morning. You need to do some exercise. You need to do some asanas. You need to do some pranayams. You need to um, uh, examine your diet. You need to cut down on processed food, have more fresh food, fruits, have limited quantity of food. All of that will be helpful. Meditate for some time, have a routine for meditation, and all that would be really helpful for you to move towards sattva. So that's for people who are in a stage of beginners or initial practitioners, I would say. Now, what I'm going to say is for people who have practiced sattva for a long period of time. Okay, now this part of the conversation or the talk is for people who are established and disciplined in a sattvic lifestyle over perhaps a few years or even many years. Mm, Eating right, sleeping right, having a proper routine, a balanced lifestyle, certain good habits, and all of that. Now, this part of the conversation is for that. This is like perhaps you can say for advanced people who have established themselves into spiritual practices through discipline and the rigors, which is yoga is all about sort of, do's and don'ts, yamas and niyamas. It tells you what you should do, what you should not do, and cultivate a balanced lifestyle. The word that they use is ahar, vihar, achar, vichar, which means healthy diet, healthy routines, purposeful life, healthy thoughts. That's what it is. Now, what happens is if you have been practicing, and like I can speak from my own experience, for a good 5 years, I used to have this very strict, very routine based life. I would meditate for 2 hours every day, not missing any single day. I would meditate 2 hours. Now, whether it would be 2 hours at a stretch or whether I would do it 1 hour, 1 hour, but I would meditate for 2 hours. I would have really sattvic food. I would sleep early. I would wake up early. I would have a certain routine, a structure. Saturdays, I would maybe go to certain temple, uh, and then I would, and this was also the time when I was associated with the Yoga Institute, and my whole life was created around the routine and structures of also being a teacher there, and doing certain things. So this routine, this discipline, this structure is important for a mind which is plagued with tamsicness and rajsikness. A dull mind and an impulsive mind needs a healthy routine and a structure. But after some time, this becomes the bondage. You are now stuck with your healthy routine and structure. Mm. Because our eventual goal is I want freedom from all attachments, freedom from all stuckness, or freedom from all identities. After 5 years, it's not so much I realize, but now I can say I can look at it. But I was stuck with my routines. I was stuck with my do's and don'ts list. I was stuck with the identity of being a yoga practitioner, and there was also a slight arrogance, like, okay, I meditate for 2 hours every day. Oh, I have this, if I say something, then I do it. There was a sort of a identity which was getting nourished, that, oh, I am a man of great discipline. If I say something, then I do it. So, and I wasn't aware at that point of time. Now when I look back, I can look and I can see what was happening. So this becomes the change or the bondage of sattva. This is the bondage of good habits. You feel very uncomfortable if your routine gets healthy routine, gets disturbed. Especially like if you are not, see, when you're in a control environment, like let's say you are in your home where everything is controlled, then you can of course manage your routine, and maybe all the more if you're single or you're living by yourself, then you have absolute control over your routines. But supposing if you're traveling, or if you're staying with someone, or if you are um, someone is coming, and there is no flexibility. We are then stuck with our routines. We want things a certain way. Mm. And that's where the bondage is. So supposing if you're traveling and you're going to another place, then you want to have your things the way you want it. I want to have a certain diet. I want to have sattvic diet only. I won't eat onions and garlic, or I will not have this kind of food or that kind of food. And all this then becomes a problem, because there is lack of flexibility. Oh, I need to have um, peace and quiet so I can meditate and be in a state of stillness and silence. But it's possible that your environment doesn't have that silence. Sometimes, all the time, there is something or the other which is constantly going on, so one may not always get silence. And eventually the goal of spirituality is, yes, initially it's good to have some silence, because then that can help you to practice awareness. But the goal of spirituality is freedom from this and that, freedom from attachment to this or that. So which means simply being able to be with what is. Now, that what is could be an environment which is noisy. That what is an environment which doesn't give exactly the kind of food I want. That what is could be an environment which um, maybe where I'm staying is not exactly how. The point I'm trying to say is that that life, if one is very stuck with habits and routines, even good habits and routines, which create sattva, which creates balance, then that becomes a bondage, because now life is fluid, life is moving, but no, I want things in a certain way. And quite often, then when you are with people or in a different environment, that can be very uh, irritating for other people because you're so fixed in your ways of being. And then the other thing is also, if you don't get your fixed ways of being, you don't get your maybe 2 hours of meditation, if you don't get the silent environment for you to do meditation, if you don't get the kind of food you want for your sattvic diet, if you don't get the proper sleeping arrangements, yeah, sometimes it's also to do with simple where the bed is facing. Is it facing north, south, east, west, vastu kind of things? So then it starts creating discomfort. It starts creating irritation. It starts creating resistance. And no matter where you go, you will not always find the perfect environment. And even if you're in a controlled environment, that's always not going to remain static. Sometimes relatives comes and maybe your favorite mother-in-law comes. Favorite, I'm just saying, like I'm just joking, but of course, one has only one mother-in-law at a given point of time. So then what do you do now? So one needs to, at some point of time, let go of this attachment to the bondage of sattvic habits or so-called good habits, which is not to say that no, I want to have a sattvic diet. Yes, if it's possible, preferable, easy, fine. I want to have a sattvic diet. There's nothing. But if not, fine, I can manage. Which is not to say that no, I would not prefer to have a silent, quiet environment where I can sit and meditate. But if it's not, ठीक है, I don't mind construction. Like outside where I'm staying, there is a construction going on. There's a drilling noise that happens sometimes during the day. Then I can just sit and just observe the drilling noise, and that becomes a meditation itself. So one is no longer stuck that I need a certain environment, then I can, be this Zen like spiritual yogi person or whatever it is. Supposing if I don't get the time, I'm occupied with something or doing, I don't get the time to meditate. Fine, it's fine. I didn't get the time today, so maybe tomorrow. And then maybe meditation is no longer about having to necessarily sit for 2 hours or 1 hour or whatever, which is like I'm saying, it's good to have that discipline and routine in the beginning. So this conversation is not for people who are beginners, because then you will use an excuse, say, okay, nahi hua, flexible. But this is for people who are now stuck with a healthy routine and are don't have the flexibility to move out of that, because that becomes a bondage, that becomes an attachment. You are attached to your healthy routine. So yes, and sometimes I think, I don't know, so I think this conversation is to simply to make you aware. I don't know which stage whoever is going to hear this conversation is at a beginner stage, at a middle stage, or an advanced stage. This conversation, the last part of this conversation, is primarily for people who are stuck with routines, healthy routines and habit, and lack the flexibility to just be fluid and be open to whatever is happening in the moment. And because if the goal of spirituality is to be free with identification of the mind, so that one becomes aware and then finally realizes that there is only awareness. So there's no one becoming aware, and there's only existence. If that's the journey, then one has to let go of this identification and attachment to good habits and being a practitioner of spirituality. Now, whether this conversation, I think the purpose of this conversation is to sensitize people into this becomes a bondage, the bondage of sattvicness. But quite often, just maybe by being sensitized, whether they will give it up or not, I really don't know. But quite often, at least in my own personal experience, sometimes your mind just doesn't work and you're not able to do, like, personally for me, I think I had to go through a very traumatic time to be able to give up my attachment to sattva, because the identification attachment was so strong. And because of whatever trauma happened, my mind just stopped working and I couldn't exercise my willpower to fulfill my routines and habits. And then I was feeling so miserable until a time said, I felt like, okay, I let go. And then there is an element of sattva, but it's no longer I have to do. I have to eat this only. I cannot, I have to meditate only at so and so time. I need certain environment. I need so many hours of meditation. All those things are no longer there. So, yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to uh, convey in this session, which is about not about these three states of mind, tamas, rajas, sattva. At the initial stages of our journey and even at the mid stages of our journey, it's very good to have a discipline. Don't make excuses. It's good to have a discipline to move towards a healthy sattvic lifestyle, whether it's sleep, whether it's eating, whether it's having a meditation routine, and I can only think maybe chanting, whatever it is, to move towards sattva. It's very really necessary, because if you start saying, it's okay, go with the flow, then you will never be able to create that routine and those habits, and which are really necessary. And so perhaps one needs to be strict with themselves. But when we move, when we have practiced that enough, then a time comes we get attached to those routines and habits, and then we get fixated on those routines and habits of sattvicness. And now a sattvic identity is created. Oh, I chant for so many hours a day. Oh, I meditate for so many hours a day. Oh, I eat this food. Oh, you have now created the sattvic identity and attached to the routines and habits and actions of now whatever. Now this is becoming counterproductive, because now you're getting attached to this. Now it's time to let go of this as well, which means it doesn't mean you don't have a preference for sattva. Yes, you have a preference for sattva. If you had a choice between stale food, spicy food, fresh food, I would want to have fresh food. But supposing if an environment doesn't, provide maybe food without onions or garlic or something, it's fine. You can manage perhaps, unless you. So the point I'm trying to say is not being fixed in certain ways. I hope you're getting the essence of what I'm trying to convey. It's okay to have preferences, but this, I want things this way, now that becomes a problem. So one needs to realize at one point of time, am I like, there are people who like for years and years have certain routines and practices and rituals. And if those routines and practices and rituals don't happen, they start feeling very, very uncomfortable, because now the mind has gotten attached to sattva, those routines and habits and rituals. So, see which part of this conversation is relevant for you. If you are in the initial stages, then don't use this conversation for people who have been practicing for a long time. And if this is more relevant for you, then it's time for you to become more easy. Let go, I think. Let go, be easy. And I think there's a discipline which comes very intuitively. It's no longer has to be mind driven. The discipline of the mind is very yang oriented, very masculine oriented. The intuitive discipline is very yin oriented, very feminine oriented. Okay, right now I feel like writing. Maybe right now I feel like just sitting quietly and just being. And right now it's being more intuitive and in tune with your body, rather than okay, now is my time for my walk, now is my time for my meditation, now is this, you know so there's a place for that masculine discipline, and there's a place for this intuitive, so-called I wouldn't say even discipline, listening to your intuitive voice, what needs to be done in the moment. Mm. So, yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about today, about these three states of mind, and particularly the bondage of good habits, attachment to a sattvic state of mind, that I want to have only peace and quiet and silence and balance. And then if there is no balance, then we feel very, very uncomfortable. So part of the sattvic attachment is also, I want to have always have a quiet, silent, peaceful mind, that I should never have any kind of a disturbance. That itself is another fixation. It's like the mind is there, so there will be thoughts, there will be some anxiety sometimes, there may be some conflict, there may be some disturbance sometimes, and it's okay if there is some time. But it doesn't always have to be like Zen like. And you know. So that's that for today's session. I hope you find it relevant and useful for your own practice, wherever you are in your own practice. It's good to know about these three states of the mind. Unfortunately, no one in school ever talks about the mind and understanding the mind or managing the mind, because, and it's quite a tragedy, because whole of our life we are using the mind, but nobody talks anything about the mind. We are taught about history, geography, mathematics, biology, chemistry, blah 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 blah. But what about the mind? It's only when mm, through life experiences and suffering, then you realize that, oh, there is a mind and I need to understand this. And this understanding of the mind is not only just figuring out your unconscious beliefs, but also understanding how the environment influences my mind and these three different states of mind. And this is particularly more so spoken in yoga. So this is where these three gunas come from. Okay, so with that, we end today's session. Let's end it with a simple, small, spontaneous prayer. And so, if you wish, you can close your eyes, join your palms. Namaste, and my dear higher self, help me to cultivate good habits, to enhance a easy, balanced, quiet state of mind, which move me from dullness, lethargy, tamas, which move me from rajas, hyperactiveness, action, towards sattva, lightness, calmness, balance. And if I've been practicing sattva and have healthy habits for a long period of time, free me from the fixation and identification with sattvic habits, make my so-called discipline, movement, guided by an intuitive energy, which is open to what is, which is accepting of what is, without getting fixated, identified with certain patterns of how I should be. Seek your guidance and grace in my journey to realize my true self. Om Shanti Shanti. Okay, so with that, we end today's session. I'll see you in the next session. Goodbye. God bless. Take care.